So my name is Ethel. I have two middle names, Akpene Sefakor, and my surname is Atefoe. So just a little disclaimer here. I do not pose myself as an expert when it comes to the area of emotional intelligence, but this webinar is just to kind of excite our curiosity in the area so that us as individuals, we can go on and learn more when it comes to emotional intelligence. So we are not promising that this 1 hour, we would be able to provide all the questions you would have on the topic, but then we hope that we'll be able to excite you enough for you to go and learn more to improve on your emotional intelligence. And as Jake said, please feel free to put in your questions. Just type it in the chat box. We will have a question and answer session. And we want this to be as engaging as possible. So feel free, put in your suggestions, your comments, your questions. And I'm going to have like 2 short activities. I want to encourage all of us to take part in these activities. It will help us as individuals. Okay, so I'm going to go on to share my screen now to start with my presentation. Okay, so topic is emotional intelligence at the workplace, what you must know. Okay, oftentimes when we mention the word emotions, it depicts the idea of the irrational part of us, right? So sometimes we will be like, use your head and not your heart. Or when we talk about someone being emotional or too emotional, we usually do not mean it in a positive light. It's more like a weakness, kind of. So the question we would like to ask today is, can emotions be intelligent? Can emotions be intelligent? Yeah. Interestingly, the area of emotional intelligence is a budding area when it comes to research. For IQ, several research have been done. This emotional intelligence construct was not really talked about until the 1990s. So you can imagine how new or fresh it is. So research is still ongoing. We still do not have all the answers, but there has been promising knowledge in the area. So emotional intelligence has been found to have positive influence on several aspects of our human life, including our happiness, our well-being as individuals, our quality of life. Because think of it, we human beings are social species, right? No person can survive in isolation from others. So anything that would influence our social interactions in a positive way has an ability to also affect other areas of our life positively. So the subject of emotional intelligence is very, very important. Okay. And research has also found that the part of our brain responsible for perceiving or identifying emotion and expressing it, or even making emotional judgment, is also linked with the area responsible for higher intellectual functioning, like decision-making, judgment, inhibition, knowing when to act in certain ways. Those 2 areas of functioning are actually linked to same area of the brain. So yes, emotions can be intelligent. Yeah, so in the workplace, all of us may know at least one person who is always picking up quarrels, always arguing with one person or the other, always spitting fire and brimstone, right? And we also have that one person who would never react to anything. We don't know when they are angry, we don't know when they are happy, we don't know when they are sad. So they're just there. And we also know that person who is approachable, who is very calm in the face of troubles or challenges. We know that person who seems to be flowing with everyone in the workplace. It doesn't mean they don't have disagreements. but then they seem to be on good terms with everyone, okay, or almost everyone. Not because they are pretending, not because they are trying to impress, but they just seem to naturally flow with everyone. So what makes the difference among these three people? Okay. So some of us may think, oh, maybe they have different personalities. Yes, personality could play a role, but the bigger part of the issue boils down to what we are discussing today, emotional intelligence. So what is emotional intelligence? Meyer and Salovey are considered the founding fathers of the construct emotional intelligence. And this is how they define it. Okay, one, the ability to perceive, appraise, and express emotion accurately. Okay, are you able to identify your own feelings or emotions? Are you able to identify other people's emotions? Are you able to evaluate or appraise emotional messages or information? And are you able to express emotions accurately? The second part of the definition is the ability to assess and generate feelings when they facilitate cognition. So if you need to make a decision, you need to make judgment. Are you able to assess and generate feelings that are necessary in order for you to make those judgments or decisions? And the other part is ability to understand affect-laden information. Affect-laden information that has to do with a lot of emotions and make use of emotional knowledge. And also the ability to regulate emotions to promote growth and well-being. Yes, emotions can actually promote growth and well-being, and we would see how in a bit. Okay, so there are several parts of this definition, but in simple terms, emotional intelligence or emotional quotient is simply the ability to identify and manage emotions in oneself and others. It's as simple as that. You're able to identify and manage emotions first in yourself and also in others. So we have this first activity. If you have a pen or paper by you, I'll encourage you to take part. So I gave two scenarios here. This has to do with workplace, everyday interactions. Okay. First activity or first scenario. You get to work in the morning, you greeted your co-worker, but he or she just zooms past you without a response. So the first thing is, how are you likely to feel in this situation? Okay. So write it down. How would you feel if you get to work in the morning, greeted someone in the office, the person doesn't respond and just zooms past you? How would you feel about that situation? And number two, what would be your reaction or response to this incident during the workday? Is this incident able to spoil your mood for the rest of the day? Are you going to be consumed by what happened in the morning? How are you going to react to it? Okay. So just put this down. Later, we will ask you to share that with us, probably by typing it out in the chat. Second scenario, you were given a task at work to complete with a 1-week deadline. However, your immediate supervisor needs to provide some information or material to enable you complete this task. Now, your supervisor knows that you have 1-week deadline, but 4 days had passed and he or she is not providing what you need to complete the task. Okay. The question is, how will you handle the situation without escalating it into an organizational or an office drama or an organizational conflict? How would you go about this? This person is your superior. They know you have a deadline. They are delaying your progress by denying you the necessary information or material. How do you go about it? Okay. So just take 2 minutes to analyze these scenarios. You can type your answers in the chat, and I think Jake can read one or two out for us, and then we move on. We will all attest that these are situations or scenarios that can happen in the office, in our day-to-day interaction with our office mates, with our supervisors or managers. These are things that could happen. They are not made up, they are not fictional, they are real life situations that can happen. So as individuals, how will we deal with such situations? How would this affect us as at a personal level and also affect our performance at work? So I have a case scenario here I want to read out. It may provide some answers to these two scenarios here. He was a seasoned engineer heading a software development project, presenting the result of months of work by his team to the company's vice president for product development. The men and women who had worked long days, week after week, were there with him, proud to present the fruit of their hard labor. But as the engineer finished his presentation, the vice president turned to him and asked sarcastically, "How long have you been out of graduate school? These specifications are ridiculous. They have no chance of getting past my desk." The engineer, utterly embarrassed and deflated, sat gloomily through the rest of the meeting, reduced to silence. The men and women on his team made a few desultory and some hostile remarks in defense of their efforts. The vice president was then called away and the meeting broke up abruptly, leaving a residue of bitterness and anger. For the next 2 weeks, the engineer was obsessed by the vice president's remarks, dispirited and depressed. He was convinced he would never get another assignment of importance at the company and was even thinking of leaving, even though he enjoyed his work there. Finally, the engineer went to see the vice president, reminding him of the meeting, his critical remarks, and their demoralizing effects. Then he made a carefully worded inquiry. "I'm a little confused by what you were trying to accomplish. I assume you were not just trying to embarrass me. Did you have some other goal in mind?" The vice president was astonished. He had no idea that his remark, which he meant as a throwaway line, had been so devastating. In fact, he thought the software plan was promising but needed more work. He hadn't meant to dismiss it as utterly worthless at all. He simply had not realized he said how poorly he had put his reaction, nor that he had hurt anyone's feelings, and later apologized. Okay. So what do we see here? This is a vice president who wanted to give a constructive criticism, right, about this engineer's work. But unfortunately, it did not come out the way he intended it to come out. And then he also did not realize that his words were hurtful. Okay, so when I was reading, we saw that some of the supporting team actually made some comments to register their displeasure, but he didn't even take note of that. And 2 weeks went by. This engineer was consumed by this statement or remarks. God knows how that affected his work. Okay. So it's after 2 weeks that he gathered the courage to confront the vice president about his remarks. And this vice president was so surprised because he didn't realize what he had done. Then later he apologized for his indiscretion or his inability to put across his message appropriately. Okay. So unfortunately, these things happen in the office a lot. We have somebody who, they may mean well, right? but the way they communicate what they want to communicate does not come across as someone who means well. Then after hurting someone, they have no idea they've done that. And the victim goes around feeling hurt for a long time. The one who offended this person has no idea they've done that. Okay. So the person is going on with anger, with bitterness, with resentment. If they never get the chance to ask or confront the person who made the remark, then it goes on unresolved. And this has the ability to escalate into a huge office conflict. And this can affect individuals' productivity or their performance or even satisfaction. This engineer was going to leave a work that he actually loved. And he's a seasoned engineer, so the office or the company will also lose a seasoned employee if this issue had not been resolved. And then he went on 2 weeks being tormented by these remarks without the vice president even knowing that they've done anything. Okay, so it was good that he also went on to confront the vice president about this. So unfortunately, these are things that we encounter at our workplaces. There is this employee going around with so much hurt and anger towards another, and the other person has no idea or no clue they had done anything wrong. So this is why emotional intelligence is very important. If this vice president had high EI or high EQ, he would have known how to communicate his criticism without hurting so many people's feelings, right? This engineer could have also went about it different instead of suffering for 2 good weeks when it was nothing so serious to be depressed about. Now, what is this emotional intelligence I've been talking about so far? We looked at the definition, but the definition alone does not make sense until we see what it's actually composed of. Now, Meyer and Salovey may be the father of emotional intelligence, but when it comes to emotional intelligence at the workplace, the man who actually made it popular is Daniel Goleman. He's an American psychologist who has published several books on these subjects. Okay. So he proposed 5 different components of emotional intelligence. First one, or the first basic one, is the self-awareness. Okay. What is self-awareness? Self-awareness is simply your ability to identify your own emotions in the moment. Do you know yourself? Okay, Socrates says, know thyself. Do you know yourself? Do you know your trends and patterns of reactions or emotion? How are you likely to respond or react in a given situation? Are you aware? Do you know your emotional strength and weaknesses? Okay. Are you someone who is quick-tempered? Are you someone who is likely to overreact? Are you someone who is intolerant, impatient? Do you know yourself? That is self-awareness. Okay. Because knowing yourself, knowing your strength and weaknesses is a starting point. Okay. There are some people always tell you, oh, you are quick-tempered, you go like me, because you have no idea. You say certain things or do certain things, people are hurt and you have no idea. You are surprised when people tell you how you come across, because you likely do not know yourself. Okay. Are you able to identify when you are angry, when you are sad, when you are disappointed? Okay. There's a difference between being sad and being devastated. Do you know the difference? Okay. Sometimes we feel angry, or what we think we are is anger, but it's actually may not be anger, it's fear or insecurity or anxiety. Are we able to make the difference, or do we know the difference? Do you know yourself? Okay, self-awareness. It's an important part of emotional intelligence. Second component, self-regulation. Self-regulation does not mean you hide your emotions. It does not mean you suppress your emotions. It simply means you are able to express your emotions appropriately. Are you able to identify situations where you need to pause and think before you act? Are you able to know, or are you able to bring yourself to emotional balance or equilibrium? If I'm very angry, will I be able to soothe myself or calm myself down? That is self-regulation. It doesn't mean you don't get to express your emotion. It means your emotional expression is proportionate to the circumstance or the situation. You don't go overboard and you don't go underboard. You are not emotionally disinhibited, nor are you inhibited. That is self-regulation. Okay? You are balanced emotionally. Next is empathy. Empathy is a big one. Okay? You cannot be emotionally intelligent if you have no empathy. Empathy does not mean you pity someone or you feel sorry for them. Empathy simply means you are seeing things from the other person's perspective. Okay? It's not how you will react when you find yourself in a situation, but trying as hard as possible, putting your own emotions aside for a bit and then trying to understand the other person. Okay. Sometimes we go like, I know how you feel. No, you don't, because you are not that person. Maybe if you find yourself in that situation, your reaction, your feelings might be totally different from the person. Okay, so trying to see from the other person's perspective, trying hard to understand them. You do not ignore their feelings. You validate and acknowledge their emotions or feelings. That is empathy. Next is motivation. Now, the motivation we're talking about is not that, oh, someone promised you 100 Ghana, and because of that, you do ABC. Motivation here, we're talking about intrinsic motivation, self-motivation. There's something within you that pushes you to do things, to achieve a goal despite the challenges. So if you're intrinsically motivated, money is good, fame is good, recognition is good. They are all good. Okay, we cannot live without money, but you see beyond these external rewards, and then there's something from within. What motivates you is your ability to achieve that goal. What motivates you is self-growth. What motivates you is your own life satisfaction or fulfillment. It is not the external rewards. So people with emotional intelligence are usually intrinsically motivated. Then last but not the least is social skills. Social skills. Your ability to interact with people effectively or positively. Okay. You're able to resolve conflict effectively. You're able to hold good conversation or communicate well with others. Okay. You have influence. You're able to persuade or influence others to listen to your ideas. You are able to engage others, listen to them, take their perspective. So people with high emotional intelligence have these abilities, or they have higher abilities in these 5 areas. So our second activity is this quiz. Now, it's difficult to have a single score when it comes to emotional intelligence. So, but then this question, I find them interesting. It will give you an idea of what your emotional intelligence is, or whether it's okay, it's good, it's in the middle, or poor, and also give you suggestions on how you can work on it. It's just 12 questions. So I'm going to copy this and paste in the chat. Okay, so you can copy the link or click on it and answer the questions. Yes. A quick reminder, feel free to put in your questions. Just type it in the chat and we would answer them. Okay. You don't have to do the quiz now. You can copy the link, paste it in your browser, and then later do it. Okay. All right. So how does emotional intelligence or emotional quotient affect the workplace? Okay. So emotional intelligence is very important when it comes to decision making. In the office, if you are making a decision, you have to take into account other people's perspective. How is this decision going to affect other people? How is it going to affect performance at the workplace? Okay. Without emotional intelligence, you'll be someone who is just looking inward. Okay, how do I feel about this? Once I feel it's okay, you just go on and make decisions. But if you have empathy, you have social skills, you are aware, you have self-awareness, you know your weaknesses, you know when you are likely to make selfish decisions or wrong decisions or not. So emotional intelligence helps us to make good decisions or good judgment in the workplace. What is an effective workplace without relationship? Okay, we build relationship, we build teams, we communicate. So without emotional intelligence, we will not be able to sustain or build good relationship. We will not be able to have effective teams in the workplace. Communication. It helps us with stress management, especially when it comes to self-regulation. If you're able to emotionally balance yourself, okay, I'm exhausted, I'm stressed, I'm anxious. If you're able, you can regulate yourself, bring yourself to equilibrium. It will help your stress level as well. If you are somebody who has empathy, you are less likely to pick grudges with people, engage in office drama and conflict all the time. That is very stressful, isn't it? So if you cut out all that, all those excesses, your stress level will also reduce. Adjustment to change. People with high EI or EQ are very flexible. Okay? And flexibility is required to be able to adjust well with change. The workplace that is dynamic is the one that grows. Okay? If there's no change, there will be no growth. If you want to be at one place doing the same thing all the time, there will be no growth. So people who love change, people who are flexible, will easily adapt to change in the workplace. Job satisfaction. We are social beings, right? So if you are working with people and you are good with interacting with these people, you are self-regulated, you have empathy, you have good social skills, you are likely to be satisfied with the job you are doing. Okay, and then that will also affect your job performance. Emotional intelligence is required for leaders. It helps with leadership and managing people. So imagine a team leader or a manager who has no clue how to give feedback, who has no clue how to give constructive criticism, who cannot see from other people's point of view or even identify that this person is hurt, this person is angry, this person is frustrated. That person is not a good leader or manager. Okay. Emotional intelligence also helps us with conflict management. Conflict management or conflict resolution requires empathy. Okay. It's not about who is right or wrong. It's about how we can make it right. Okay. So people who have high emotional intelligence are people who easily forgive because they have empathy. Okay. They're able to communicate their displeasure in an appropriate way so that the issue does not escalate, but they're able to bring down the conflict. So this is not exhaustive of what emotional intelligence can do at the workplace, but these are some important ones that we can link emotional intelligence to. Okay, so in this slide, I attempted to compare someone with high EQ or EI and someone with low emotional intelligence at the workplace. Okay. So someone with high emotional intelligence make better decisions and solve problems. Someone with high EQ also keep cool under pressure. Okay. Because they are self-regulated, if there's pressure, they know how to balance their mood, they know how to bring themselves to equilibrium. They are able to resolve conflict easily. They have greater empathy. They listen, they reflect, and respond to constructive criticism. Because they know they are self-aware, right? If I'm self-aware, I know my weaknesses. So if someone points out my weaknesses to me, I already know. So it's not something that will make me defensive or want to attack the person, but I'll receive it and work on it, right? They also communicate better because of their social skills. They take initiative, they are flexible and adapt to change easily. People with low emotional intelligence, on the other hand, play the victim or avoid taking responsibility for errors. If they make a mistake, they are always looking for excuses, justifying what they have done, why the other person is to be blamed instead of them. If there's a conflict, they take themselves out of it totally, and it's always the other person. Okay. I'm sure we all know of at least one person who thinks that everyone else in the workplace or office is an enemy or wrong, and they are always the right people. They play the victim. They don't take responsibility. They don't sit down to analyze where they may be wrong or what might be their role in this conflict. It's always others, it's always the other person. They have passive or aggressive communication styles. They are either out there always arguing, exploding anytime there's an issue, or they are passive. This the person who they have a lot of resentment and bitterness, but they will never show it. You just see that this person is no longer talking to me, and you have no idea what you have done. They will never ask you. They just withdraw. They just stop talking to you. They just stop interacting. They are being passive about how they feel. They don't communicate anything. You have no idea. We also have people with low Q refusing to work as a team because they have problem with everybody in the office. So who do they work with? This person did this to me the other time, so I don't want this person in my team. I don't want that person in my team. Even if they join a team, it's like one argument upon the other throughout. Okay, so they are not good team players. Another characteristic of a low EI or EQ person is that they are overly critical of others, or they dismiss other people's opinion. Okay. So you bring an idea and they shoot it down. They dismiss, like they have the best ideas, everyone else is wrong. And that is because they lack empathy. They cannot see from other people's perspective. So it's always them. If it's not coming from them, there's something wrong with it. All right, so we have come to the gist of the matter. How do we improve emotional intelligence or emotional quotient at the workplace? So the best way is to look at the components one after the other, see where you lack, and then you try to work on it. We all need improvement. Nobody has it all. Okay, so self-awareness is key. You know yourself, you're able to identify your weaknesses, and then you work on them. First, self-awareness. Okay, to be able to identify your feelings or emotions in the moment, always ask yourself how you are feeling. Okay, do you really know what is going on inside you? What you are feeling, is it really anger or is fear? Is it really anger or insecurity? Is it really anger or is sadness? Okay. Some of us, we've been conditioned in a way that our minds think there are certain emotions that are more acceptable than the others. Okay. So if it's sadness, it will come out as anger. If it's fear, it will come out as anger. So it's like always anger, 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 but what is actually going on inside you? Take your time to figure it out. Okay. And be able to name your emotions. Okay. Naming your emotion means you are improving on your emotional vocabulary to know the right word to use. I mentioned earlier that sadness is different from what? Devastation. Anger is different from frustration. Right? Fear is different from worry. Okay. Improve on your emotional vocabulary and be able to name your emotion accurately. It's only when you name it right that you'll be able to do something about it. Okay. Mindfulness is key, being in the moment. Most of us, we move on autopilot. It's like we are just moving. Our body is here, our mind is somewhere. Take time within the day and be present. Ask yourself, what is going on? How am I feeling now? Okay. It's a habit. It's not something you do one-to-one. So you be consistent with it, and then it becomes part of you. And take stock of your strengths and weaknesses. A lot of us, when we are asked, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? We have to think for like an hour. Sit down and take stock of yourself and know your strength and weakness. Know how you are going to react, or you are likely to react in certain situations. Identify your triggers. All right. For instance, if you're someone who have been criticized like almost all your life, it's like you're not good enough. Nothing you do is good enough. Okay, that is your experience throughout your life. If you grow up and you're working in the office and someone goes like, oh, about your idea, right? Don't you think if you do it this way, it would be better? Are you saying I'm not good enough? Are you saying my idea is not good enough? What the person said is not really the problem. It's just a trigger. There's something going on beneath. Okay? It's because of those your experiences. It's only by knowing yourself that you will know that what the person said is just a trigger, and you will not take offense with the person, or you will not attack the person. You will know that the problem is coming from within. Okay. Number 2 is improving self-regulation. Look for appropriate ways to express your emotions and avoid impulsive reactions. Okay. There's something I have practiced over the years. If I'm extremely angry, I would not react in the moment. Okay. Give yourself time. Remember that emotions are fleeting, right? They are just like rivers or streams. They flow. You will not be angry forever. If you give it time, it will dissipate. It will dissipate. So give yourself time. Try to calm down before you react. Think before you react. All right. Empathy. Try to see things from other people's perspective. You are not always right. Know that you can be wrong. What you think is not 100%. Okay, so avoid jumping to conclusions. Avoid using stereotypes. Okay. Oh, as for women, they are like this. As for fancies, they are like this. As for men, they are like this. You are not being empathetic. Deal with individuals at an individual level. Even identical twins are not the same. Don't jump into conclusions. A lot of us think we are psychics, right? We can read other people's mind. Well, he did not respond to my greetings because of what I asked yesterday. You are jumping to conclusion. You are not being empathetic here. Listen to people and take yourself out of the equation. It is not what you would do if you are in their situation. Sometimes we tell people, if you had gone through what I've gone through, you won't be here talking. That is you. That is them, right? Take yourself out of the equation and try to listen and understand the other people. Do not ignore their emotions, validate their feelings, and always think about how you are responding to people. The way you are responding or reacting, is it capable of breaking this person's spirit or soul? Be mindful of how you respond to people. Motivation. Where do you stand? Ask yourself, you must know whether you are motivated at your workplace. Where does your motivation comes from? Is it the no feel what you are getting at the end of the month? Is there something more than that? Right? Focus on what you love about your job and not just the external rewards. If you cannot find one thing, it doesn't have to be something big, right? If you cannot find something, one positive thing about your job, one thing you love about your job, except the money you get at the end of the month, then sorry to tell you that you might have to change your job. Okay. There should be at least one thing you love about your job, one reason why you want to remain working there beside the money. Be optimistic and remain positive. Maintain a positive attitude. Challenges will come. Tough times will come. Okay? It is that internal motivation that will keep you going, to have a positive outlook on life as general and on your job. And also set fresh, attainable goals always. It is those goals that will push you or motivate you to do or do your work well. Social skills, there's a lot we can, there's a whole training on social skills training, right? So we cannot talk about everything here. Maybe one day we can take communication skills just as one and look at it. We can take a whole social skills training. Okay. So social skill building and sustaining positive relationships. You cannot be an island. You cannot act in isolation. We are all social beings. We thrive better as social beings than in isolation. Okay, so learn how to resolve conflict. In conflict resolution, do not always look for opportunity to apportion blame. It's not about who is wrong or who is right. When there's conflict, every single person has a role to play. Even if the other person is wrong, probably even if the other person is wrong, right? They also think you did something. So take responsibility for that part. Improve communication skills, active listening. You can only show empathy if you are listening actively. You are listening to the other person, trying to understand them. Improve your persuasive skills, being able to influence others and making them or convincing them to listen to you or listen to your ideas. Find something positive about your work colleagues. You cannot like everyone at your workplace. You cannot like everyone at your office. Even that person that annoys you, right? Find at least one positive thing about the person. Oh, maybe he annoys me, but he's hardworking. He annoys me, but he has a good sense of humor and makes everybody laugh. At least everybody has at least one positive thing about them. Be assertive. Know how to set healthy boundaries. Let your no be no and your yes be yes. Don't be a push around. Don't say yes when you actually mean no. Right? Avoid gossips and office drama. It will earn you respect. Okay, if you avoid office drama, it will earn you the respect and influence you need. General tips: identify a role model. There may be someone you admire because of how they handle others, because they are good with people. They may have the characteristics of someone with a high emotional intelligence. Identify this person and learn from them. Okay. Oh, I like how this person talks with others. I like how this person is able to make others listen to them. We can all learn from someone else. Be kind and compassionate. Always think about how your actions or your feelings or your words will hurt or affect other people around you. If you are compassionate, you would also be empathetic. Manage your stress levels. If you are chronically stressed, there's no way you can manage your emotions well. No matter how you try, you will not be self-regulated. And seek professional help for your emotional problems. Some of us have gone through a lot of emotional stuff that we have buried our emotional parts. We are not in tune with our emotions. They are down, 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 down to the extent that we don't even feel anything. We don't even know what we are feeling, right? Because it's difficult to get in touch with our emotion without being exposed to the trauma or the hurtful or painful emotions we have buried, okay? And the truth is that emotions do not go away. You can suppress them as much as you want, but they will not go away. They will find a way of surfacing. And I have news for you. If they are going to surface, they may not come exactly how you suppress them. They will come as something else, something they think will be acceptable to you. It could be that chronic headache, right? It could be alcoholism. It could be depression. It could be anxiety. It could be those panic attacks or palpitations, right? So seek help for your emotional problems to be able to get in touch with your emotions and manage them well. Okay, so I leave you with 3 important questions. always ask yourself, when you find yourself in an emotional situation, ask yourself, what am I feeling? What does this feeling mean? And how does what I'm feeling affect others? It will help you to think before you act. So I found this online. I felt it kind of summarized what I spoke about today. So I just included it in my slides. So it's time for questions and answers. If you haven't typed your question yet, please type it in the chat box and we would attend to them. Thank you.